We're at a neighboring plow contractor's shop, going to be installing our SnowEx spinner harness update. It's going to be replacing this connector, known to be quite faulty. We're going to do some work down here in the bottom half. We're going to do some work underneath this cover here. We're going to go to a time lapse, and then we'll have a couple of videos illustrating specifically what we're doing in here and down here. Here we have the connector in question on the SnowEx Helixx that's going to be replaced here shortly with our spinner harness upgrade kit. As you can see, most contractors are utilizing zip ties to hold this connector in place. When this connector comes apart, you're going to see a CP fault up on the main control module. We're up here in the cab now with the SnowEx controller. As you can see, when I turn this on and we get the spinner disconnected, we generate a CP fault, which requires the team member to go back and assess what's wrong at the back of the truck. All right, we're zoomed in here on the spinner itself. So the first step here is to disconnect the motor from the harness portion that we're going to be removing or replacing. The second step here is to remove this retention clip on the back side. We supply one, so you don't need to worry about reusing this. And then the last step is to depin this connector here. So we're just going to use a traditional straight pick, and we're going to depress on the top side of the pin slightly while applying a little pressure on the back to remove it. You can see here, this is the tab inside there that we're trying to put pressure against to remove it. So we'll do the same thing for the red or power terminal. And there you go. So once that's removed, this can get pulled back through the grommet and completely removed from the system. We're going to take our new harness, supplied. We're going to feed it back through. Through here, we're going to give you a brand new connector and then the brand new back shell. We're going to go ahead and install this in, checking to ensure that we have color for color. Once that's locked in, you'll hear a positive click. And then you're going to put your back shell back in place. And you can reconnect your motor. One key point here, when removing this, there's a plate that has 8 bolts on it. It's important to remove all 8 bolts from the bottom here, both from the motor and from the housing itself. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of trouble getting that motor to dump out of the bottom of your spinner. Now you just reverse the process, putting the motor back in, replacing the bolts, and tightening your grommet up on the side, and you're going to be ready to transition on to the next phase of the installation. All right, we're into the control panel area now on the SnowEx. First thing we're going to do is disconnect power over here to ensure that we don't have anything hot in here that we're going to touch with another wrench or anything of that nature. We have 2 connection points on the controller to disconnect, and then we have one rubber molded boot. So we're going to start with the rubber molded boot. It's right here. It's very simple to disconnect this. And then we're going to go up in here with a wrench on this top point. Once they get broke free, you should be able to spin them by hand. So we're going to break both those loose. Most likely, your ground point's going to be the last one on. You got to pull the other grounds off there ahead of that one. And then once those are undone, we're able to pull this portion of the harness completely out of this rubber grommet in the back. So once the rubber grommet's removed, we're going to go ahead and disconnect this bracket over here. It was on this one quite loose. Looks like I'm going to need a 3/8 wrench. And that completes the removal of the control unit. Reinstallation of the new harness is going to be the exact opposite of what we just did to take this apart. So you've got your supplied bracket with your new connector in it. We're going to get one of the bolts started. You'll see this bracket does go on the opposite direction. This ensures that when you are using your fork pockets for removing this at the end of the season, that the connector itself does not get damaged. It actually brings this connector into a higher position. Installations are reverse on the inside. We're going to feed the power feed and ground feed up. Finger tighten the nut. I'm going to do a little bit of work just to get that heat shrink or that loom to look good. And then the last piece here is to connect the 2-pin rubber connector. We'll tuck this stuff back in. At this point, the installation is complete other than putting the cover back on and testing the unit out. You'll see here this loads in. We have a nice positive connection there with a click, and you're not going to be pulling this thing apart going down the road or have any problems with that the CP fault we saw earlier. We've completed the installation here of the cap and plug. So when springtime rolls around, you remove the plug. You remove the plug from up underneath here. You can go ahead and install this here. Keeps all of the dirt and debris out of that during the summertime. And then you'll reach up underneath here and do the same thing up above. And you're ready to go until next season. So this completes the install of the spinner upgrade kit. No longer your team members, your operator is going to have to get out of the truck and wiggle that connector in the middle of the night, and you're going to ensure the proper salt application for all of your customers. This kit's available at www.jwiresolutions.com.